Welcome to another episode of the Refined Real Estate Podcast. It's Manny here with Ian and Janelle. We are real estate investors in Halifax. Combined, we've bought over 40 units, we've flipped houses, we've wholesaled, and much more. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please be kind and give us a 5-star rating. All right, guys. Anything new going on in you guys' lives? Ian, how about you?
Yeah, I know yourself and we just got back from some travel, got to check out some other places of the world and avoid some minus 40 in Nova Scotia. So always good to do that. But yeah, back at her and excited to get back into the groove of things.
That's great. What about you, Janelle? What's going on down in somewhere in South America?
Yeah, I'm in Argentina right now in Buenos Aires. And actually it's been interesting going out and meeting people here and telling them that I'm working as a real estate investor and also a mortgage broker. And it's been interesting. A lot of people immediately granted, mind you, this is kind of like we're out for drinks and kind of at a bar and chatting, whatever. But the question that I get so often right now is just what do you think about the rates? So I find that a pretty interesting question because my answer is always the rates don't matter. The rate will change. The purchase price of the house does not change. But yeah, so it's been an interesting sort of talking about that down here. But that's what's going on for me. And also, I don't think we've properly announced it, but Ian and I are working as mortgage brokers, associate mortgage brokers with the Blake Wilson Group. So we're super excited to get that ball rolling. And yeah, just sharing all of our knowledge as real estate investors to our future clients. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah, no, it's to follow up on that point. It's certainly exciting to have done it the way that we've done it, where we actually get to, try and find good brokers and put deals together that way. Now it's taking that experience and being able to use it on the other side of the table. So yeah, very much so looking forward to more on that.
That's great. And for myself, like you, Ian, I just got back from my honeymoon. We were in Hawaii for about 10 days.
Congrats.
Oh, thank you. It was amazing. And I think we timed it perfectly. We took vacations in the coldest week Halifax has had in years. And we come back and it's been pretty nice. But yeah, came back fired up, ready to go.
Did you take a drive by Brandon Turner's house or what?
No, we didn't have time.
Yeah, no, that and with the being away on the coldest day. So my hottest day on my vacation, I was in Barcelona, and it was on the beach, sun in full force, and just seeing all the posts of everyone else minus 40 in Nova Scotia, and I was I picked the perfect time to get away. So
yep, me too.
Yeah,
it was actually on the weekend there was a heat wave here, and it was actually almost reaching plus 40. So I know a lot of people in Halifax are probably that sounds great. And I'm actually, no, it's pretty much the equivalent of the minus 40. It's you don't even want to go outside. You hide in AC as much as you can.
Yeah, I think really most people would still probably trade you.
I'd rather be, honestly, being uncomfortably cold versus uncomfortably hot. It's quite the pickle to choose from. All right. So on this week's pod, we're going to talk about our first multi-unit apartments that we each bought and just some learning lessons that we took away from them and stuff that we'd like to share with our viewers, new investors, try to avoid some of the mistakes that we've made. I know you guys bought the same one, but I'm sure you both have different things that you learned. So how about you, Ian? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so a little background on it. So it was a 8-unit building on Herring Cove Road. If you guys aren't familiar with that, you're probably 10, 15 minutes to downtown Halifax, but in an area that has traditionally been a little bit of the rougher side of town. But over the last, 4, 5, 6 years, you're really starting to see a lot of development there. You're seeing a lot of the new, big, beautiful high rises being built, and you're seeing all the the worse off neighborhoods are really starting to turn around. So we definitely got in a great area. It's not fully gentrified yet, but it's certainly well on its way. Building we bought was certainly well below market rents, needed a bunch of work, but you could tell that it certainly was the type of building that that we coveted. It's like a big square brick building, mostly 2 bedrooms, and yeah, it was one right from the hop. It's like this is the type of building we wanted to buy. So yeah, so we did a lot of the negotiating out the gate, and that in and of itself brought a number of lessons, because we were originally going to do like a bit of a portfolio buy, where we were going to buy 2 of his buildings now, 2 of the buildings later. This of the entire portfolio was by far the building with the most potential, so we were most keen on this one, but it was going to be a bit of a package deal to buy it with a other building, and that building was a lot harder to make work. Like this one, you could certainly see the potential in this one. The other one, although yes, eventually it's going to be worth something, but in its current state, it was all 1 bedrooms, needed a crazy amount of work. The rents were just so low that I think on that one, we were saying we would have had to put close to 50% down or 60% down on it just to get off to the races. So it would have been much more capital intensive and with little upside. Our lawyer actually did something that it helped give us an advantage in the negotiations. Maybe we'll get into that on another podcast when we talk more about legal and that type of thing. But having a good lawyer certainly can save you. And in this case, it certainly did. So yeah, then we were off and we bought our very first building, feeling very proud of ourselves. We got to work right away on that. And that's pretty much when the problems first started, was just not having... We had a plan, but we went from doing, for me especially, doing like smaller construction projects, and then graduated to flipping houses. And like there's a steep incline in what you need to know or have organized from going from doing a little project to doing a house. There's as equal as jump to going to like one of these mid-sized multifamily buildings. Like there's a lot more. Like in the past, we were getting these things completely vacant and we can just go in, do what we want, life's good. Here now, we had to deal with tenants. So yes, we wanted to go in, renovate the common areas, do all this stuff, but we also had to do that with tenants living there. So we quickly came into the world of what dealing with tenants was like, and I'm sure Janelle could speak to that a lot more. That's kind of where she started off in things. So yeah, it's mistake number 1, and Janelle will echo this, is that we were trying to be our own property manager. So I'll let Janelle speak to that a little bit further.
Yeah, for sure. So that first building, so that's the first multifamily building for me. That's the one that Ian and I bought together with an investor on that one. And thankfully it's coming to an end now, that as I think most first projects go, it's a little bit over budget and a little bit over timeline. But obviously a huge learning there. And when we first bought that, I was one who like went and met all the tenants and sent out the letters, like delivering them saying, hey, like, we're the new owners. It's not, so-and-so anymore. The tenants were probably aware that the building was being sold anyway. But yeah, that was my first run at being my own larger scale property manager. I have some units myself that I self-manage. But when you go from managing like 3-4 people and then managing 8 people or 8 units, then you find yourself spending a lot of time as a property manager. And especially in the first year of a project where it's a lot, like there's a lot of renovations going on, you're dealing with a lot of tenants, dealing with a lot of renovations. So, and also here in Nova Scotia, working with tenants so that we could get into the units and renovate them. Some of them were pretty bad. I know there was one that the tenants were actually telling us that there was a lot of black mold, like in the walls and things like that. So it definitely needed renovations. And yeah, a ton of lessons learned. And just to echo what Ian was saying on the buy, like right from the get-go, having a proper lawyer, making sure that we were protecting ourselves, that we weren't, having huge risks of losing a 20,000 plus deposit, that was pretty much on the line for us. But yeah, just being your own property manager and just knowing that that's something to hire out. That's not worth my time. My skills are better placed elsewhere. Now it was a great experience to have that, and especially just working with tenants, like speaking with them, and just trying to negotiate with them and find out the best like win-win scenario, because we want to get into the units, we want to renovate them, we want to bring them, as Ian was saying, like that area is, there's a lot of new builds, there's a lot of really nice buildings, and then you have these older brick buildings that have been owned by people for 20, 30 years, and nothing's been done on top of the cosmetics of it, but also the infrastructure, like electrical upgrades, bringing things up to code, like sprinkler systems. I think we can talk
say
about that. Yeah, it's still a little sore, too soon to talk. But in terms of lessons learned, I think on my side of things, because I'm doing a lot of the analysis on these projects, that was probably one of the first multifamily buildings that I actually analyzed. I think actually I remember getting the numbers from you, Ian. You'd collected it from the seller, having it in a Google sheet, and they're just kind of like spread out all over the place. And we're trying to make a plan where we can add value and how we can refinance and pay our investor back, and just learning how to properly analyze that. And just a lot of costs that, you go from having a duplex or triplex and you go into a multifamily, there's a lot of costs you're probably not thinking of. So that was probably one of the biggest learning experiences for me, on top of just negotiating and dealing with tenants. So tons of lessons learned there.
No, absolutely. And I guess, yeah, to add to that as well was, some of the new types of costs that you don't see in doing house flips and stuff, like the cash for keys and like getting tenants out and all that stuff. So that's the strategy that we chose, was basically go to each individual tenant and say, listen, we're not kicking you out, but what we'd like to do is, upgrade these units. So let's come to an agreement on what a fair price is to, have you move to a different location where you get, a minimum of 3 months rent. And we went above and beyond and said, we want to give you the moving fees. We want to be flexible in our dates and all that good stuff. So, yeah, that came out well over budget as well, because some of them, some tenants wanted some more money because it was such an inconvenience for them. So yeah, again, missed the mark there, but it's we're just that much more dialed in to keep doing that moving forward. So definitely enjoyed all that stuff. Then another thing, so yeah, I'm not sure, just from what we've told you guys, some of you guys know us a little bit further, but any of the people that don't know us that well, how Janelle and I bought our first buildings were through an investor. So our investor actually brings the vast majority of the funds to the deal. They get equity in the deal, and we basically take care of all the work. We've been, our investor's been fantastic, been amazing, and like that's been like, so we're doing our construction side of things, we're learning about tenants, but it's also investor relations. And again, our investor, we've just been very lucky. He comes from a business background, so it's been very professional from the beginning. So, not only are we just held in check with providing X amount of information to the investor, again, him coming from a business background, he knows what to look for. And that's just, it's helped us grow as investors as well, to say, moving forward, when we're raising money from investors, like, we just have a better system of communicating, but also doing the proper checks and all that good stuff. So again, we've been very fortunate with our investor, so that's great.
The financing side of it, that was just thinking about like working with an investor and having that business background and that understanding of it. For us, that first multifamily, that's first commercial mortgage that we had ever gotten, and we did have a pretty good mortgage broker working with us on that first one. And I think looking back, like, there's a lot of things we would do differently now. Probably find a investor focused mortgage broker, because they are out there. Not all mortgage brokers are the same. They're not created equal. Not to like our own horn or whatever, try to promote this, but this is something that I truly believe in. But yeah, finding a good mortgage broker who knows like what your plan is and knows creative financing and how you can get that deal done. Because there are a lot of mortgage brokers out there, or banks, or lenders that you go to and you have this project, and then they're just like, no way, can't do it. And then meanwhile, there's these other brokers out there who are willing to work with you, and they can think outside the box on that. And I think, Manny, we listen to our weekly podcast kind of like book club meeting that we do. We listen to the Master Keys season 3, episode 3. That's where they had Cyrus Habib I don't know if I'm saying his name right. And then that's what we were discussing yesterday, actually, and just chatting. That was Manny. That was your experience working with an investor focused mortgage broker, and that was a huge game changer for you. It sounded like.
Huge. Working with Cyrus is the reason why I was able to do what I was able to do for the past couple of years. If I was using an unsophisticated agent or a bank mortgage specialist, I don't think it would have gone as smoothly as it had.
And again, it just like goes just like that should be the case like across the board. It's like if you want to have like there's a ton of realtors out there, but if you're looking to buy like an investment property, it's like some realtors, they don't know how to run the numbers. They don't know where the opportunity is. They know how to find you something on the MLS and say, this is a good price. But it's like if you can have someone that actually knows like, no, this is a good investment because X, Y, and Z. Same with your lawyer, same with your broker, same with your bankers, all those people. It's like if you want people that are actually knowledgeable in this field, and you're just going to be that much better off. So
yeah. And that's not to say that one is better than the other. It's really just they focus on different areas. If you're a first time home buyer and you're a young couple and you have specific criteria, then that real estate agent that's catered towards that, like that's going to be the real estate agent for you. But like Ian said, if you're like, hey, like I'm trying to grow a portfolio, these are my criteria. And then, you get that real estate agent who's more kind of like family focused. And then they might not have their mind wrapped around like what you want to do, or they're not familiar with it. Like that's just not their client.
I was talking to a guy the other day and he told me his agent didn't feel comfortable offering lower than the asking price. I'm like, man, this is an investment property. Like, what, how are you not comfortable? I told him up front, this is not the agent for you if you're going to go anywhere within real estate, because you need to have, and like I said in my first episode, like my first agent helped me a lot. And if I just had a regular Joe and a real estate agent, might have not gone as smoothly. And I love real estate agents. Don't get me wrong. I think they're great. I follow a whole lot of them on Instagram and I've had many meetings with them, but not many of them know a lot about investing because that's not their specialty. It's not what they spend all of their time on, like us three, right? So be careful who you use as an agent, or just be picky, because it's going to make a big difference.
And take your time to find a good one. Same with a broker, yeah. Because we've gone through a couple like for different periods and stages. But yeah, it does take time to find like the right team. Like as they talk about on bigger pockets, like when you're a real estate investor, you're truly forming that team, and you're kind of doing like a mini interview with each one that you work with or try to find a project with. So it's okay that to find someone that just isn't the best fit for you. It can be really frustrating because I know it took Ian and I a long time to figure out like the best mortgage broker for us, and just making that connection. It doesn't happen overnight. It might not happen on your first deal, but yeah, that's probably a big learning curve for us on that one.
Yeah. Anyways, big tangent there. Well, let's get back to the task at hand. So Manny, let's hear about your first 6 unit, I think it was.
Yeah, so it was a 6plex. And before I dive into that, a lot of the things that you guys learned on the 8 unit that you just described there, I was able to luckily learn a lot of that on just my first duplex. I learned from that I needed a property manager, I needed a general contractor. I could not do all of that. One, I don't have the skills for it, and two, I don't have the time, and it would take me a lot of time to learn those skills. So I went ahead and started creating that team early on. And just like boundaries with tenants. It's like these people were texting me all hours of the night. I was trying to be their friend. They didn't have that much respect for me. I was in my 20s. They were in their 40s. The power dynamic was really weird. So right after that, it's like, okay, property manager, that's it. But then, yeah, so the first 6plex, it was in Fairview, which is in Halifax as well. And Ian, how you described Spryfield is almost exactly how I would describe this area of Fairview. It's just slowly on the come up. It's just a couple of really new, nice, fancy buildings were built right around the corner. But traditionally, this has been a little bit of a rougher part of town. But it's on, like, the rents are strong now. It's really turning around. How I came across this building is I was just driving for dollars. I was driving around this area. And I noticed, man, I haven't been around this area. Like, I've lived in Halifax my whole life. Driving for dollars is when you just literally drive around streets slowly and just look at buildings, houses that you would like to buy, looking for certain signs, uncut lawns, or just looks messy, old. it looks like the person that owns it hasn't really kept up. And yeah, I would write down their addresses. And then, so as I was driving out of this neighborhood, I gave my main off market real estate agent a call. I'm like, hey man, there's a lot of opportunity around here. Like he had access to all of the mailing addresses of the owners. So I'm like, let's just pump out some letters here. And we got a good response rate. We maybe had 4 or 5 people respond to us in this little area. And that's how this deal came across. The number the guy wanted was pretty fair off the rip. Like he calculated he wanted 850, I believe. That's what it was. And it was like all 2 bedrooms. So I'm like, I ran my numbers on it. I'm like, you know what, this is fine. And the beauty of this deal, though, is the fact that I was able to get a residential mortgage with RBC. Normally, you need to do commercial lending with multi units of this size, 6 units and up. But RBC is the one bank I'm pretty sure that does residential for this size. Because if I was to do commercial, it would have been tough without getting like incredibly creative. I'm pretty sure Cyrus texted me. He's like, Manny, you're going to need to put like 75% down if we're going to do a commercial mortgage on this thing. And I'm like, okay, so this is either not going to work or we have to find another strategy. And we were able to make it work with the residential mortgage. And yeah,
So
honestly, a lot of things that, go ahead.
Yeah, in that case, so it wasn't so much based on like your debt service ratio of the building or like how the building was performing.
Exactly. It was based on how much money I was making and my wife, like who's on the mortgage too. And it worked out in that way because what the building was making was sustaining like a $300,000 mortgage. The person had it incredibly like low rent, and he did it on purpose. He kept the rent low so he could keep the value of the building low so he could pay less taxes. Just really, really odd system the guy was doing, but really wild. But luckily, RBC saved the day, and we were able to get in there. And similar to you guys, I had to turn over almost all of the units because the rents were around $500-600. Wasn't going to sustain itself, and all the units were old, have never been renovated. So I was able to negotiate 5 out of the 6 tenants to leave. The last one, little old lady, somewhere in her 70s. Did not want to go. She wasn't motivated by money. She had nowhere to go. And luckily the numbers worked with her sticking around. So you know what? Like people think we're all evil landlords and trying to kick everybody out, but we do have a heart. She had nowhere to go.
I was just thinking this, like when people listen to this, people who are a little bit more biased towards the tenant, they're going to have a lot to say. Maybe we'll end up on Reddit for something bad, but we'll find out.
I hope not, because this lady, I could have been more stern or gone through other lengths to kind of get her to leave, but I have a conscience as well, and I want to be able to sleep at night, so I allowed her to stay, and she's been a great tenant. She treats the place like her own. She says she wants to live there until she can't. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. And she, anytime I see her, she asks me, are you going to raise my rent? Are you going to raise my rent? And I tell her every time, no, I'm not going to raise your rent. Your rent's going to stay right where it's at because I know that's all you can afford. And the other 5 that I was able to get out, they were all happy with our situation. Like we were able to negotiate a good deal amongst each other, and I didn't force them out. Again, like they had a number, I had a number, and we just kind of met in the middle, and they were happy to move on.
That's for great. One, like
the units,
to find that the units win-win, were decrepit. That's great.
It is, and it makes me feel better. Because, I don't want to kick people out if they really don't want to go. I'm not trying to put anybody on the street. And like they were paid fairly, in my opinion. And I was able to get in there and start doing the work.
There are some landlords out there, some real estate investors that, probably on a little bit of a larger scale that aren't really as concerned with the tenants and their well-being as we are. Again, we're not major developers out there where we come from a place where we want to treat people fairly, and that really is important to us. And I think that just gets glossed over so much, and you just hear about all the negativity in the news of this person's doing this but it's like, we are trying to be as fair as possible. We are are actually taking the well-being of others into consideration, and we're just trying to move on in a way that can benefit everyone. So yeah, I don't think all landlords should be painted with the same brush, and I think we're examples of people that are trying to do it the right way.
So Manny, what were your biggest lessons learned on that first deal?
So one big lesson, and I'm sure everybody would feel this, is when I first bought this deal, interest rates were very low. My first rate was a 1.4 variable rate.
Wild.
So let me tell you, I planned for a 2% exit. And that is most definitely not the case. And like the numbers are greatly affected because of that. So if I could go back in time, well, honestly, no one could have predicted rates going up as fast as they did. So I don't blame myself for that, because this is unprecedented in history for rates to go up this fast, especially with the Bank of Canada saying they were not going to increase rates until 2023. So people planned all of their projects based on that statement, as did I. But still, I should have been able to see the writing on the wall a little bit better. Rates being that low, inflation would have inevitably creep up, and the Bank of Canada would have to act. So that's a big lesson for me. Be conservative when you run your numbers. I should not have planned for that low of an exit. And even if I was going to transition over into a commercial rate, maybe if I put a 4 or 5% rate, would have been much better. Not a 2% rate, which the 2% interest rate difference is significant on your debt coverage ratio. And when you go to refinance, instead of a bank giving you X amount at like 75% LTV, now they're going to have to adjust their numbers significantly to make the numbers work a little better. So if I was refinancing a year ago versus refinancing in a month or two when I do it now, the numbers are going to be, six figures difference. Luckily it all still works. But still, it would have been, I could have been a little bit more aggressive about my negotiation on the buy. So it kind of goes back to what you guys were talking about earlier. It's like, just try to get the best deal you can on the buy, because then it really insulates you from all of these little weird things that happen that you can't predict.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying now. I'm like, interest rates interest rates changed, but the purchase price does not change. That's forever. The money does not go down unless you're paying the mortgage. So
I think I heard a saying. It's like, date the rate and marry the price. Have you guys heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much kind of what it is.
So
very much so.
If you had a better idea of what was coming, the interest rates were going up. Like, would you still have done the deal? Like, do you have any like qualms about it, or are you just like, no, 100%, no regrets at all?
No regrets. I would have done the deal. One thing that I would have changed probably is being a little bit more conservative on my renovations. Just kind of lowered my budget a little bit. Like, the units are very, very nice, but in turn, I paid a little bit of a premium on the renovation. So I probably could have cut back 10, 50% on the rental costs, and that would have helped me on the back end on the refi. But other than that, no, I would still make the deal happen, because I think it's going to be a good deal, good hold long term. Whether I keep it, whether I sell it, I could sell it now and still make a nice profit. So it's a win-win for me no matter what.
And that's the same with us. Like, Janelle, I feel it's like, we made a bunch of mistakes, but it was mostly just learning. Like, it's like, we learned a crazy amount from this deal, and now we're just that much more equipped moving forward. We've got another one of our 8 units that is we're coming up to the renovation process right now. We're just going through some figuring out what we want to do with the tenants and communicating with them. So as that comes to a point where we're ready to renovate it, where we've already learned a lot on the renovation stuff. As for the buy, I would buy it the exact same price at the exact same time with the exact same rates, and I like all's good there. And then for our building as well, it's like, we went really heavy on the renovation side of it, but we're doing a lot of upgrading the electrical for an 8-unit building, like in and of itself. Like we're well into 6 figures on that.
Yeah, that's the biggest part of our budget. You still look at the units, like unit by unit, massive part of the budget. And also on top of like the electrical upgrades, changing, Ian, you can probably speak to this better, but changing some of the stuff in the electrical room itself. Like the furnace room was in the electrical room. They were the same room. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Which that is very much not to code. If you have a nice furnace and a boiling hot water tank next to all your meters, Nova Scotia Power does not like that. No surprise, surprise. So yeah, in terms of spending money on those projects, yeah, that's a huge, huge expense.
Yeah, but again, it's like floor will be replaced every now and then, or like tile or whatever it is. It's like no, we did spend a lot on this, but it's on stuff that's going to last for years and years and years and years and years. And then also the justification of getting us away from spending money on the heating, putting the electric baseboard, and then letting the tenants cover that. So it's like that is like a financial maneuver that actually increases our net operating income, which in turn increases the value in the building. So it was an investment, if we just ran the numbers and ran the different scenarios, and it made more financial sense for us to spend, six figures on the electrical, because we get that right back in the value on the building. So it was I would definitely do it again. So other than that, another lesson that I would have taken away from it, and this one's I wouldn't necessarily say this is something we could have implemented on this deal, because it was our first deal, raising money, having investors, all that stuff. But for us, what you'll typically see in the industry, in the multifamily space, in the raising money space, is we gave up equity in the deal, which we were happy to do. Like we said before, our investors been awesome. However, we didn't charge fees for ourselves to like manage the project. And typically what you see in the industry is when people give up equity, they're still getting paid on the fees that they charge. Now for us, we didn't do that, but again, it was our first multifamily. We wanted to learn. We had a great relationship still do with our investor. So it was us going through and learning the lessons that way. But again, you see a lot of people that will charge like an acquisition fee, because we found this off market. There was no realtors. It was just us, and did all the negotiating, did all the contracts, all that stuff. Then the other would be same mistake we made with wanting to self-manage the tenants, was also self-managing all the renovations. So it was like that's been a lot of time and a lot of stress, and it's like it's not money that we get paid for that. So it's, yes, we're building a bunch of equity, and then eventually we'll have the cash flow and all that good stuff. So for us, wasn't like a put food on the table play for the next few years, but it was like this is a massive uptick in our net worth, in our in just the assets that we have and the value of them. So that was another one. And then the other fee that you'll typically see is like a refinance fee, because as Janelle can specifically speak to, like tracking all of this stuff, like it's not just like hire a bookkeeper. They'll keep track of everything because it's such an active project. There's a lot of moving parts. You have tenant money coming in, you have expenses going out you have like your capital expenditures, but then you also have just like your maintenance expenditures. So it's like to go through and keep all this stuff organized, like it's a nightmare. And then again, like going and shopping around to get this thing refied properly, lining up appraisals, doing all this stuff. Like it's a crazy amount of work. And here we are doing it where, yes, we've given up equity. We're not getting fees on it. So it's been like a massive drain on our time. But again, we're increasing our net worth. We're, great, gaining a lot that way. Crazy amount of experience, if nothing else. And, but yeah, it's not putting food on the table type deal. So that's definitely something moving forward. We would certainly do much differently. Yeah, that's definitely another lesson that
To
we
add
can
on to
take
that
from
too,
this.
like the tracking all the expenses, I haven't kind of been asking other investors this as of late, but when we were doing it in the thick of it, I was pretty much asking anyone and everyone. I was like, how are you tracking this? Like, because it's one thing if you have one project on the go and it's a couple units and you're renovating it. But when it's a larger project like that, it's 350 plus in renovations, and you do have multiple projects going on. We were doing a flip as well during that time, or finishing one up. So just tracking all that, because it's so important to know where the money is going, what you're spending it on. So we made some changes throughout that process during that project, and finding better ways to track things. I'm always curious about how people who have multiple projects going on, like the house flippers who are doing like 3, 4 at a time, I'm always very curious how they are tracking all that, because there's only so much you can do like on the bookkeeping side. But yeah, I don't know. What about you, Manny? Like when because you're doing a lot of renovations on that project, how are you tracking it? But I know it's a bit different for us because we are working with different bank accounts and different corps. So I think you're doing that deal on your own solo.
Yeah, it's been pretty straightforward because I'm using like one GC who's done
Yeah.
all the units so far, and he has his own sub trades. He has his own electrician. He uses his own plumber, and like I even found a painter. But now I told my painter like I want you to bill me through my contractor. So this one guy, he's the key. He everything, all my bills come from him. Like all of my receipts from him, and like within the receipts, he'll have like a section. This is for plumbing. This is for electrical. This is for blah blah blah. For whatever I'm paying for, like he'll invoice me accordingly. So it's been pretty straightforward. If I didn't have him, I would be in the same situation as you guys. I'd have to be sub trading everybody out, and keeping track of everything would be a headache.
Yeah, and moving forward, we're certainly doing that. So it's yeah, that was a lesson learned. But again, just this is a crash course in multifamily. So it was like it is nice to get in there, see for now we can see the problems that we'll potentially run into on next projects, and now we can mitigate those problems to an even higher degree. So yeah, no, but yeah, anything else we want to add there?
No, those are pretty much my big lessons for the first couple deals, and I'm sure we'll learn more as we go bigger and do bigger things. And in different countries, there's learning, lots of learning. This is just a lifelong students of real estate. All right. Thanks for listening to the Refined Real Estate Podcast, episode 5. Please go like and subscribe on all of the platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Play, wherever you're listening to this right now. Thanks for listening.